Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are tackling one of my favorite characters, one of the most underused, most unknown, most interesting, I think, characters that DC has, or had. They don't really use them anymore for other reasons. But this week we're covering The Question, former...
Steve Ditko.
Oh yeah, it's a Steve Ditko. You might know this artist / creator. Yeah, this name. Comics creator Steve Ditko. Little known fact: he created Spider-Man with Stan Lee, but mostly he did. And then then had a falling out with Stan Lee about who created what at Marvel, and then was like, "Fuck y'all! I'm gonna go make my own characters in Charlton the way I want." And then he made little characters you might know called Blue Beetle and The Question, and they were both oddly enough backups in like respective comics. So Blue Beetle was a backup to Captain Atom, and then it got its own series, and then when Blue Beetle had its own series, The Question was backups in it. So it was like little 8-page stories in the back of the Blue Beetle. So if you want to find the first appearance of The Question, you got to find Blue Beetle number 1 or whatever the fuck it is that he first appeared in. So it's not actually going to be under The Question. But as far as DC is concerned, we're going over the original Question series that ran from I think it was the entire 80s. I think it ended in 1990 or 1991. It's like 36 issues long, this whole series. We're going to go over the first 6 issues, which is the first trade that is completely out of print, and all of these are out of print. So if you want to find them, you have to read them digitally, or you got to find the issues in a back issue bin, which is very possible. I have found them recently at like half-price books and whatnot for like 50 cents. So it's one of those things that is doable if you want to read it. But if you want to go find it at a comic book shop that doesn't have back issues, good luck. The trades are really hard to find, and they're expensive. 15 years old. I mean, the trade I bought the one I liked the most, like the storyline I liked the most, and I was like, I'll get the other ones later. And then they went out of print in like a month, and then never was able to find them again. So they've never reprinted them. There was a second Question that that was in the mid 2000s when 52 happened after Infinite Crisis and the Green Lantern Sinestro Corps War that we were talking about a couple weeks ago. There was a series right before that Sinestro War called 52, where like DC restructured its whole multiverse into 52 planets or 52 multiverses, and as part of that, they killed off a bunch of characters, a bunch of legacy characters, brought in some new ones, kind of rearranged some stuff. And one of the characters they killed off was this character, The Question, the original one, and then they brought in Renee Montoya, the cop from Gotham City, to take his mantle. And so she became The Question, but they haven't really done anything with her. She doesn't have her own series. She had like a small mini series.
Yeah, and the most recent thing, like I think anybody would even like, well, hey, was that the Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey movie?
Yeah, but she wasn't The Question.
But she was. They kind of hinted like she was gonna do something, but they didn't.
They hinted, but they haven't. They never said what she was gonna be or who she was or anything. She wasn't even like, I have a question for you, or you might think I ask a lot of questions or something. There's nothing weird like that they threw in there, which would be funny if they did. But yeah, like they didn't even allude to it at all. They were just like, she's here and she's the Birds of Prey because she's also in the Gotham or in like the world anyway, right? As Renee Montoya, so she could be just there if we don't do anything question-wise with her. And so yeah, but in the comics they haven't done anything with her either. Okay. She is Batwoman's girlfriend for a while, like in the mid 2000s. So like Kate Kane when she became Batwoman, that's like the relationship that they had. And so other than that, she would only appear in like woman a little bit, and then she had like a mini series called The Books of something. I can't remember. It was if you remember in Final Crisis, that Libra character, the guy that like was the prophet or whatever for the bad guys, he had like a book of bad stuff or whatever, the Book of Crime. That's what it was called. That was like the Bible or whatever, and she was finding all the books of that before Final Crisis.
Oh, okay.
So that's like the tie-in to all this shit. She was like a detective or whatever, but it didn't really have anything to do with the question as we know it in this series. I kind of like, I don't not like her, but as of right now, they haven't done anything with her for me to like get to know her or grow on the character or anything. Yeah. But I am inclined to like the question. So if she, maybe if someone writes her with these kind of characteristics of the original question, that would be cool. I dig it. But we'll cover a little bit of history on the question just to get you started. I did already like the little where he came from, but basically Steve Ditko had a specific philosophy he ascribed to, and this character is very much in that philosophy. So this character has a very unique feel compared to other DC characters or just other superheroes in general. It's kind of like if you read like a character that was written like a kung fu character in the 70s, they're going to have a completely different feel than anybody else because it's all Eastern philosophy and, I know kung fu and all this stuff, as opposed to anything like Jack Kirby would do or something, or, and so like there's just a whole different philosophy behind this character. He's very black and white and like, I'm a good guy and truth is what matters over everything, and bad guys are bad, and if they fucking die, they fucking die. And like, there's some pretty hardcore like scenes in this book, I thought, where they're like, he's doesn't have a problem like murdering people or killing people or kicking people.
No, yeah, if they're bad, they're gonna get it. Basically.
Yeah, and so and I appreciate that. And even like Batman shows up in this book, and he's different. He will save a person if he can, even if they're bad. Whereas the question, there is a bit of black and whiteness where he wouldn't necessarily save a bad person if he if something was gonna stop him. So like say he's got to save someone else from a car that's running towards them because the bad guy did something, but the bad guy's also going to get run over on this other side of the street. Well, he's going to save the good person over the bad person. So that's how his like philosophy is. So it kind of distinguishes him compared to other characters, and you can totally feel it even in this Redux, because basically this was Denny O'Neil taking over the reins on this new character that DC brought in after Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's when they all came into the DC universe. Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, and the Question were brought into the fold, and they were like, okay, we're going to have new series for at least, I think all of them had new series under their belt. So Blue Beetle, I think, started first, and then the Question was in that, and then he launched his own series, and then Captain Atom came later. And then they were all in like the Justice League and stuff too, later on, like the Unlimited stuff. Or no, International, that's what it's called. And he's also in like the Justice League Unlimited animated show, which I wanted to show you those episodes too.
I'm especially after reading now, and that's one thing I have to say is going into this, like I only knew that you love this character. Yeah, it's almost as much as Swamp Thing. Yeah. So I was like, okay, like I was hyped for like we're eventually going to sit down and like really get into this, and I know it's not the original. When it's the like you said, the Redux.
I will say the originals are very straightforward. The originals are like, I'm a reporter, I found out bad stuff, I'm gonna go punch them. I punch them, I save the day. Evil is conquered, and I go report on it. Like that's how those ones play out. They're 8-page stories. Yeah, it's from the 60s.
I was like, it's all exactly. I was gonna say, and I'm kind of glad because I respect a lot of older comics, but I definitely feel like we've said that before, is like sometimes they get a little wordy and there's more word on the page covering the art than actually. I need to show
you the pages of this. It's very much like
that
block of yellow text over.
Yeah, because I've read some older Spider-Man stories because I wanted to see like the differences in the original, and like there's the Green Goblin and Spider-Man are fighting, and I can't see half of Spider-Man or half of Green Goblin because there's text boxes.
You can see their feet, and
exactly
the text box is telling you what's going on behind it.
And I mean, obviously they figured this out as they went along, as far as the spacings went on. But with this specifically, you know, I was like, the only thing I had comparatively to this was Rorschach from Watchmen, and we talked about that a little bit.
And this is
before.
actually the inspiration for Rorschach, or more so. There's another character that I guess the question was the prototype for that Steve Ditko wrote later on his own self-publishing stuff called Mr. A. Mr. A being the answer and the question being the question.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, but basically, yeah, I know. But basically, the question is like the light version, like the DC approved version of Mr. A. Mr. A is even more hardcore, where he doesn't have time for villains at all. If you did something bad, fuck you. I don't care. Whereas like this guy, he's like, well, I'll help you a little bit if I can, but if not, I mean, it's your fault. You're here, whatever. So yeah, this character has quite an interesting pedigree, and then also this series I specifically liked a lot. I found this series when I read it from those trades that were printed when 52 came out. I think that's why they reprinted them, because 52 was coming out, and they're like, we have this whole question storyline. No one knows who the fucking question is. We've had 6 comics in the last 15 years called like Question Quarterly, but it was actually like Question every 4 years or whatever. Like, so that would come out randomly every now and then. So let's republish all these old Denny O'Neil comics from the 80s, and we'll have the whole series, and then that's the last time they printed them. So I read them when they came out, and then I read 52 concurrently, and I really liked this character. I really liked Denny O'Neil's take on it. And so, and Denny O'Neil, for those who don't know, he's very much, I mean, one of the best writers of all time of comics, I would say. I mean, he created like Ra's al Ghul, and like he wrote all of that badass stuff of Batman in the 70s that you know, like the whole Ra's al Ghul stuff and all the what's the other stuff? He just created all that kind of the stuff that a lot of the stuff that was in the animated series, you know, those kind of things. The stuff that Neil Adams drew, he worked with Neil Adams a lot.
Oh, okay. So that's cool.
Denny O'Neil was a very, very, very good writer, and he really took to this character. I think he really tried to be true to the character's roots, even though he was not of the same philosophy that Steve Ditko was, or philosophical background. He's like, okay, I get this character, and I'm going to like try to stay true as much as I can to the character and try to be true to him, even though I don't quite get everything that Steve Ditko was doing. Because I'm not like, you know, into that philosophy or whatever. But yeah, so I think Denny O'Neil did a really good job in this. The art is really, really good in this too. Yeah. We got Dennis Cowan, Cowan, I'm not sure how you say his last name, but he is fantastic. He is a Milestone creator. I don't know if you knew that, but he was one of the Milestone guys.
I thought I recognized him.
I don't remember. I think he did Static, and I think he did Icon as well. I'm pretty sure. Because I think when we read those, I was like, oh, that's him. On this, he's very, very solid. He can be hit and miss sometimes depending on how rushed he is, I think. I think when he's on point and he's got a lot of time to do everything, he's like really, really solid. And then sometimes when he's a little behind the ball on, you know, the weekly, this was his first weekly, or not weekly, first monthly comic. So it was pretty like hard for, like, he was like trying to do everything he could to do it. Oh, you know what he did? He did the Deathlock series that we saw. Remember the sketchy stuff that we were like, I don't know about that in the last 2 issues of Deathlock. So is it Deathlock? Yeah, it's Deathlock. Right?
Deathlock. Yeah.
There's so many characters with death in the name. I'm like, Deathstroke? No, not Deathstroke. Not Deathshot. No, it's Deathlock. So, he did like the last 2 issues of that Deathlock series we did. And I thought that was some of his weaker stuff, but this is some of his stronger stuff. I felt like all the art in this is fantastic. Bill Sienkiewicz does all the inking on it, so it's got like a cool Bill Sienkiewicz vibe. He does all the covers too, I think, or at least mixing the covers.
I especially love the first cover of all these.
It's one of my favorite covers of all time. I don't know, it just really fits the character. It's like this smoky question mark, and then you see like this guy in his hat and no face and everything. But we should also describe the question is a very unique look. He looks like a 50s businessman, or not even a businessman, a 50s like guy who goes to work. No, like everybody wore in the 50s, everybody wore like a suit and a hat and a tie. Yeah. So he looks like he's going to work in the 50s at whatever the fuck, vacuum salesman or whatever. And then like, but he's got no face. He wears this mask that adheres to his face with this smoke or this gas that he releases, and it won't come off no matter how hard you yank on it for the most part, unless he smokes. And then
then there's some chemical.
Yeah, and it's like it basically makes his face have no features at all, and it looks really freaky. It also changes his hair color and his shirt color. And I will say, and I pointed this out to John because he was trying to ask me, like, what exactly does the smoke do or the gas do? Because
I was trying to tell the colors, and that's, we'll say, like, in general, the ink and art is fantastic in this, but I think there was a little bit of a problem with,
I think they recolored it for this stuff.
For the digital when they pulled it over.
Digital, because and maybe the person didn't
we've seen this a little bit. Remember the Blade comic? It was like, what is up with his jacket?
Why is it green?
Yeah.
But yeah, this was for sure. I was like, wait, his hair's supposed to be brown when he turns. He's got red hair as Vic Sage, as the reporter, and then when he turns into the question, his hair becomes either or mostly brown. I've seen it brown in every other thing, and then his vest becomes, or his shirt underneath becomes a different color as well. So I've seen his tie change as well, but that depends on who's doing the art. So, but like in Steve Ditko, he's got red hair. He was modeled after a certain character, so he definitely had red hair as Vic Sage, the reporter. Then when he turned into the question, he released this gas, and his mask would stick to his face, and his shirt and hair would change color, so that if he changed back real fast, people would be like, "Oh, he's got the same clothes on," but it's not the question because that guy has red hair or whatever, and it's not the same guy.
Yeah.
So it was enough. It's better than glasses, but not
it's
the
better
best.
than Clark Kent. And Superman.
But it's not the best ever. But the coloring was definitely confusing on this because they did not. Something happened in the digital transition because I looked at the actual issues that I have, and they're correct in the issues. So that was interesting on this, but we'll get into it. We'll talk about it as we get through the issues. But right away. First off, we start off, Vic Sage is the main character in this. He works in a city called Hub City. He is a reporter, and he is always he's an investigative reporter. So he's always finding the bad guys, finding the corruption in the city, and getting into the bad guys' lairs and everything. And then he turns into the question when he's about to bust their ring up or whatever's going on. And then he's got the story, like kind of like Spider-Man, where like he'll take pictures of the shit that's going on.
I got pictures of Spider-Man, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I got this crazy story."
Yeah,
from
hey,
my source.
like Spider-Man's like, "Hey, happened to be there when Spider-Man was fighting the Rhino or whatever," and then I got all these badass pictures, and then here's that. So yeah, Vic Sage is like, and this is the corruption that's going on the docks. Then he shows up on the docks as the question and kicks everybody's ass, and then takes a picture of it or whatever. Or now he has like all the information he needs on who's the bad guy. He starts beating the shit out of everybody, asking questions, and now he knows.
He gets some cassette tapes.
Yeah, he'll tape everybody. And that was the big thing of this.
Dated.
Yeah. Hey, the recordings. Those are big still.
That's true.
Yeah. So basically it starts off with him in, classic investigative journalist form. He just busts into these guys' warehouse where he's like, "What's going on? I got to find this out. I'm looking for some cassette tapes that are incriminating." He busts in as the question, and we see he's got his classic. It's raining, so he's got his trench coat on. When it's not raining, he just wears the suit. So that's the only time he wears the trench coat is when it's raining. So he looks completely, to me, he looks a lot different without the trench coat on. He looks more like badass or something. I don't know, with his face gone and everything. Yeah. But with the trench coat, he looks more like a gumshoe or something. But so he breaks right in, and we see right away this isn't like a normal fight. They're kind of just introducing you to him as Steve Ditko kind of wrote him at the beginning. So,
I will say that. So his name is Victor Sage.
Oh yeah,
but he actually had that is his name that he goes by with his.
That's the name he picked.
Yeah, with his reporting.
Yeah,
because
that's like his pseudonym.
He was actually an orphan apparently. And his real name is Charles Victor Saz, which sounds very familiar to DC Comics fans as possibly Victor Zaz,
the calendar man.
From mainly like Batman comics.
It's very confusing. So if you're like, wait a second, he's Charles. No, he's Victor Saz. Yeah. No.
So Charles Victor Saz, or Vic Sage, or the Question in this case, is with SZ. and then Victor Zsasz.
I will say this: when this came out, that character was not around.
That's true.
Because the first appearance of that character is Shadow of the Bat #1, and that was a 90s book.
So who stole the name?
That guy did. And that guy should know better than naming whoever wrote that shit. I don't know who wrote it, but yeah.
Anyway, so back to the fight.
So yeah, he's got 2 names. He keeps referring to himself in his head as Charles Victor Zsasz, but as a reporter, he is named Vic Sage, and that is who he was called when he was in the Steve Ditko series. So, and I think Denny O'Neil was trying to add all this backstory that wasn't in all that stuff. So he's like, that's why he just right away he's like, I'm Victor Zsasz, or like Charles Victor Zsasz, but they call me Vic Sage when I report.
Well, it also makes sense too because he says I'm Charles Victor Zsasz, and he says he is, and he's got so many hours to live. So it's obviously counting down to like
this first issue definitely is like a
character change.
Yes. And so, he's giving us this character is how Steve Ditko wrote him. He just comes in, fucking fists up. Hey, what are you? Hey, bad guys.
Hey, you over there.
I'm a good guy. You tell me what I want to know because I'm good and you're bad. So he straight just starts punching them. He definitely outclasses these guys right away.
Meet my Jack Johnson.
There is a woman here, an Asian woman who's watching this happen inside this. There's about 3 toughs, we'll call them. And then there's like a woman who we don't know why she's there. And he even says like, hey, good on you for staying out of it, because I don't have a problem hitting a bad woman, obviously. But, good on you for staying out of it because, I'm going to beat the shit out of these guys. And I'm here for a tape that's going to, fix all this corruption in the city. And then when he's not thinking about it, he gets hit in the back of the head as he's like talking to her because, he gets surprised by these. There's 3 toughs, so he punches them. That's all he does. He doesn't shoot him. He doesn't do anything else. And one of them, of course, gets up, and then they like get a hold of him. They try to rip his mask off. That's when we find out, oh, you can't rip his mask off. And he still, even with that, is able to kind of get out of him, and like beat them up. Like I don't know how he does it exactly. He's pretty limber because he like still kicks the guy in the face even when they're like next to him or whatever. Yeah. So it's like would have to be like like right in between them, like straight up vertically in order to kick him. But hey, whatever. It's like I can't remember. There's some movie like martial arts movie or like Austin Powers or something maybe where like a leg just comes up in the middle between them and just kicks him or whatever. So it's like that. But yeah, so he's able to beat these guys after they kind of try to get basically they only had that second where they were a hold of him to show what his mask is and that kind of stuff, like because this is the first issue they're introducing this character, right? Yeah. So then he like goes to the last guy who's awake and he's like, give me the fucking tape. And they're like, all right, I'll give you the tape. Who are you? And he hands the guy this card, and the card has a question mark that appears after some gas explodes on it or whatever. Yeah, some smoke comes off of it, and he's like, a question mark. And he's like, what? And so then we see he's got this badass VW bug, and he got what he wanted, so he's leaving. And it's like, yeah.
I love you don't realize it's badass right away. It just looks like
it just looks like a regular shitty, VW bug. But then later on he find out, it's got like a Ferrari engine in it, and it's like super jazzed
like,
up.
I guess some cops see him like leaving where there was stuff broken, and he hits a button, and they're like, oh shit, he just like took off. He's
going
like
over
100 now.
Yeah. And then also he like runs head on to someone else, and it like doesn't. I mean, it crunches the front of the car, but it doesn't like break or anything. Like it slightly breaks down later. He's like, "Oh, the oil must have started leaking or whatever." But like nothing, like the car didn't explode or anything. So yeah, it must be like metal reinforced or whatever. But we see that as he's coming out of this building, he gets in his car, he turns it on, he starts driving away, and he releases a gas, and the gas. It doesn't change his hair in this, but it should change his hair color and his shirt color, and it releases the mask, and we see the real face of the man known as the Question, who is a.k.a. Victor Zsasz, and he is a reporter, and now he's going to the station to report on this bad guy thing that's happening, and he's got the tape. He's going to show it live on air,
and he's reporting again as Vic Sage.
I'm sorry, Victor Sage. Yeah. Not Vic Zsasz. But yeah,
just so we don't start.
Sorry, I'm gonna get confused. I'm gonna call him Vic Sage because that's what I know him as the most. Yeah. So yeah, Charles Victor Zsasz is his orphan name that they put on his birth certificate, which is I think a retcon for this Denny O'Neil stuff. At least I had never read anything like that before this. So I'm pretty sure Denny O'Neil was like, he's an orphan, and then we can go from there, kind of thing. So then, like we said, this next shot is where he's speeding, and they're like, these cops are like, hey, he's that guy's going over 60, and of course the cops are eating donuts and shit and drinking coffee. I will say, Denny O'Neil did this character right in that he doesn't give a fuck about the cops in this city. He's like, they're all corrupt assholes and fuck them, you know? So like, and I don't think Denny O'Neil was a big fan of police possibly either, with his like, cause he did that series, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow stuff. And he was always arguing that like Green Lantern was like a space cop, and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, yeah, but anyway, they're like, oh, we're going to pull him over, and they start following him, and then he just like puts his car into some gear, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, did you see that? It went over 100 miles an hour. How did that jalopy do that? Or whatever. And, you know, then he gets to the station, and they're like, oh my God, where the fuck is Sage? He's like 6 minutes until his like breaking report's supposed to happen. And then we see like, and here's Myra with the weather or whatever. And they're just waiting for him, and she's about to finish. And as she's about to finish and say like, and now Vic Sage with his, investigative report. And he shows up and he's like, put this on the TV right as I get on. I'm going to walk in there. I don't need makeup. I don't need anything. I look perfect. He says,
I'm beautiful just the way I am.
Yeah, they're like, Mr. Sage, your script. He's like, I'll ad-lib. And they're like, your makeup. He's like, I'm beautiful the way I am. I'm like, this is fantastic.
Very confident.
Yeah, it's very confident, very much like, I'm a badass. And that's kind of how he was. That's Denny O'Neil kind of. It's more of a it's kind of a shot at like the Steve Ditko version is like he's taking a punch a little bit, like having a little fun with that character, because he's gonna take him down a peg at the end of this and then build him up the way that Denny O'Neil wants him.
Yeah.
But I think it was still in the spirit of the original. So it's him having fun with that. Like he's a cocky kind of asshole character, or whatever. Yeah. And so so yeah, we get introduced to the character Myra, who's like another reporter with him, and that's like also his lover. But she's like, "All right, back to Vic Sage with the corruption in the city investigative report." And then they play this report, and it's literally like the mayor and like the deacon, like the head. I don't know what they call him, the head, the pope or whatever, like the head of the
pastors.
Yeah, it's like the head pastor of this fucking fellowship in town or whatever, this giant church. It'd be like if. Who's like a mega church? Who's that guy? Olstein, right? Like if Olstein and Ted Cruz were like seen being like, now we'll take all the money from everybody and we'll give it to ourselves and then we'll kill a bunch of people we don't like.
Would you care for some cocaine?
Yeah, exactly. It would be like that.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you had a video of Joel Osteen, who's like got a mega church, and then you also had him talking to Ted Cruz and Governor Abbott or whatever, and like, and then they're plotting all this crazy shit or whatever for like drug dealing and murder and this crazy shit. This book gets into some like it's almost laughable, but he takes it so seriously that you're actually like, oh, I'm on board with this. But like, there's literally they're gonna kill a bus full of children.
Yeah,
like that's one of the plots in this. They're like, maybe we should kill some children in this, and like it's not a joke, and it sounds jokey, but it's when we get there, it'll make more sense. But yeah, basically, he does his report, and they have to stop the video because they're like, oh my god, we didn't like view this footage, we didn't okay it, we didn't know this is what he was going to show. That was literal like video footage of the mayor and this like high, I think it was the commissioner of schools or something, yeah. And he's like, I think he's like doing cocaine and having sex with someone. It's like some crazy shit that you can't show on TV, unedited or whatever. And he's like, look at this bullshit. Look at what these people are doing with our money. Like, aren't you guys all pissed off? This is corruption on every level. It's in the parks program. I like how he starts this. He says it's not like, he says it stinks, which is fantastic. He's like, you know what? You can say it in just 2 words. It stinks. I'm talking about the administration of the mayor, Wesley Furman. In the past reports, we've shown to you the corruption in the parks department and the parking violations bureau. He starts at any office. I appreciate that about Vic Sage. It doesn't have to be the sexy department of whatever. It's got, it does not. It could be the DPS or whatever.
It's Ron Swanson at heart.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that he found corruption in the Parks Department, the Parking Violations Bureau, and now he's working up to the Board of Education. Got to take those teachers down. All right?
Not the teachers, taking down the
corrupt teachers.
The corrupt teachers and the corrupt people, the school board and whatnot. They're like taking bribes and shit.
The commissioner of our schools who's doing blow and
taking that sweet PTA money and running down to the strip club doing cocaine and hookers.
Exactly. So he is on it with this, and they're like, "Oh my God, cut!" Because these are powerful people, and while they like that he gets ratings, he's not checking any of this with them, and they probably wouldn't let him air these stories, at least unedited or whatever. And he just says it like full. I love they just show his face like hard. There's no emotion. It's like, this is the fucking facts, you fucking liars. Like, how dare you steal this money or whatever. And I appreciate that. And then we cut to the mayor, and the mayor, we find out, is kind of like a drunk who doesn't really know what's going on. And it very much so is the pastor guy, the reverend, who is in charge. Because this kind of sets up later on what happens, but the mayor is like, who is that? Why are you turning it off? And they're like, we don't want you to get upset, mayor. And he's like, no, I was watching that Myra lady, the newscaster. She's pretty or whatever. Like, and they're like, oh, would you like us to get her for you? And he's like, sometime that'd be nice or whatever. So like, some weird, they're just setting up shit for later, but basically they're just showing that the mayor is not really in power here. It is actually the reverend who's controlling the mayor. It is kind of like if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, a Rohan situation.
Oh, very much
where
so.
You got Wormtongue, who's in control of what's the name of the king? Is it
Theoden?
Theoden.
Yeah.
Who's in control of Theoden? And yeah. So the Reverend is like Wormtongue here, and he's like, giving all the real orders behind the scenes. And then we see the Asian lady that was in that first fight scene. She is in the room with these guys. So we find out, she's kind of like a badass or whatever. She's there, and it's funny because I like how strong she is. They're like, why didn't you do anything when we were getting beat up when he stole that tape from us? And she's like, look, if you want my fighting skills to protect a tape, that is more money than what I was paid to be there. Like, that's a separate tier of my services. So, like, basically, I'm a badass, and she says, I provide my services for a fee. I do neither more nor less than I was requested. I was not requested to protect a videotape, or nurture the theft, or nurture the inept, because the bad guys couldn't do anything to protect it. So she's like stands up to them, and then they're like, oh, don't worry, we're gonna take care of some of the people that were there tonight that failed or whatever. So we get another cut to an alleyway where this guy's getting killed by some of these other henchmen of this like syndicate that's going on with this reverend and everything. And we see, I like this. It's kind of like the character in No Country for Old Men who's got that like air gun that kills people. Yeah. This dude's got like basically, it is like a pellet gun.
I was like, yeah, it's not a BB gun, but it's not a 22.
It's a pellet gun, because a pellet gun is a .17.
That's true. Yeah.
Caliber bullet. So this says it's a 4.5 millimeter bullet. I don't know what that size is, but a pellet is usually like a 1.7, and so this is a pellet gun that can, if close enough to the skull, kill you. So if you shoot them in the side of the head or whatever at point blank range, it can just kill you because it goes inside your skull, and it's like not traceable because it's not a regular bullet so tiny, and everything. Yeah, and so basically they killed this guy that was like failed them that night. Then we cut to Vic Sage's house, and he's boning Mira down. And we find out that him and Mira have a thing, and he's like, basically like, I was fucking awesome tonight, wasn't I? And she's like, yeah, you were pretty awesome. He's like, no, I wasn't talking about the report, babe. I was talking about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you rascal or whatever, and like, and so yeah, I appreciated like how they had their relationship kind of. She is into him, but they're there like kind of physically like into each other. I don't know if they're actually in love or anything, but they're definitely like physically into each other. So yeah, and it was like a fun little way you see him kind of interact with her. And then
just showing basically how cocky he is. They're really they're building up on that, so you really get that sense of like he thinks he's good at everything. So
and that's nice. Like it's basically the way to start. This is one of the best first issues I can think of.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It really sets his character up to fall and then grow, which is how you have. I mean, you could start it off being badass or whatever, but this is a good way to introduce, especially this kind of character.
Well, yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just
gonna say in general, you only really have a few ways that most characters start off, kind of like small and impish, and then but like a really like good heart, like Captain America, and
or
then,
like Spider-Man or something.
Yeah, and then something happens to where they can become a badass. Someone who already is a badass that gets found and then becomes a bigger badass.
Yeah.
Or like if they're gonna be good, and then someone who is like thinks they're good and just amazing and cocky, and then they have to get brought down. They have to get down in the dirt, and like put on their knees and be like, "Oh man, what was I doing? I need to be a team player, or I need to like reevaluate." And then they rise like a phoenix from their ashes. Or whatever,
there basically. You go. How poetic of you. But yeah, so yeah, and then we keep seeing like a timer countdown, like every couple of panels. That's like in 14 hours and 33 minutes, Victor Charles S will die, or Charles Victor's S will die. And so, like, we know this is coming up. Like, what's going to happen? Is he actually going to die? What's going to happen? So then he's at, like, this other person's house, and we get, hey, what's going on? We find out that this guy named Tot, who's named Aristotle, what's his last name? Some Roeder or something like that?
Yeah, Aristotle.
Aristotle Roeder is his name. He calls him Tot.
PhD.
Yeah, he always says PhD, you know, because he's so smart. He's basically a character from like he knows everything. He's a philosophy guy. He's a scientist.
Yeah.
He knows quantum mechanics. He's like the Alfred and the Lucius Fox.
Thank you. Exactly.
All of those people put together into one.
Perfect.
So because he creates all the gizmos for the question, like the face mask and how the gas adheres it to his face. We also find out that Victor's been smoking, and or Vic Sage has been smoking. So he like is changing his chemical makeup because the nicotine's like affecting the mask. And we find out that in the last fight, the mask kind of slipped a little bit when the guys were grabbing it. And even though they still couldn't pull it all the way off, it did slip a little bit. And then Tot's like, well, are you smoking all the time now? And he's like, yeah, it's been pretty stressful recently with all this crime and everything. And he's like, well, that's why. Because, you know, this is made for like your body. It shows basically what he has to do all day is put this like lotion / I guess it's like Old Spice or whatever on his face or
splash his face a little bit.
He's got to splash his face with this Old Spice, like a shit ton of it. Because she even says, Myra says, like, what is that? I've never smelled anything like that before, but like it must be your aftershave or something. You know? He's like, yeah, don't worry about it, babe. It's my signature cologne, Sex Panther. And so he puts on his Sex Panther, and that makes his body chemistry able to have the mask stick to his face, and his hair will change color when exposed to this gas. So
and his shirt will change color.
But the shirt is built in. That's not part of the lotion or whatever.
No,
the Sex Panther. And so I'm gonna call it Sex Panther because he just had sex with her, and he then puts it on his face. So I like it. 100% of the time, it works 70% of the time. Yeah, but anyway, then we see the full change. We get like the whole breakdown of how it works. Like he hides in his belt buckle this like ball of like the mask. Then he unfolds it, and it's got like it's got like a mirror for his eyes, so he can see through the fabric, but no one can see his face. Then there's like a mouth breathing area, so he can breathe through it no problem. And then, but when he puts it on, you can't see through anything. So you just see his like indents of his eyes and his nose.
It's really cool. It's fleshy. It kind of reminded me of Blink a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But obviously no nose or mouth either. So.
Right.
Yeah, so it's cool. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be like a full like hood, like kind of like Rorschach.
Right.
I didn't realize it was going to. I didn't know that it was going to be like, no, there's this gas chemical that like adheres it to his face, and like you can't remove. Yeah, because the bad guy when he tried to pull it off was like, oh no, that's his face.
Yeah,
he, like freaked out about it. So that was cool.
Yeah, and like we said, his hair actually changes color and everything too, but not in this comic because they colored it wrong. But but yeah, so then he's like, okay, I found out where these guys, or I got a lead with one of my stooges or whatever, my pigeon.
My old, yeah, he's like an old buddy, but
yeah. And this character, I don't know if he threw this in for for a reason, or if this is an old character that he put in here. But basically, there's an old character that used to be a reporter, but his whole family got murdered, and now he's just a hobo that like goes around town and will give Vic Sage like tips, like, oh, I heard when I was walking on the docks that they're doing a cocaine buy or whatever, and he's like, thanks for the tip. And so basically, he goes to this guy, says like, hey, can I get some info? And he's like, yeah, I'll ask around. Then turns out the bad guys know that Vic is gonna, that's his guy, his informant or whatever. So they give him bad information, and then that's what, like, they're basically like, meet at the docks at this time. He's like, oh, okay, I'll tell him. And then like he tells Vic, not realizing that he's putting him in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is where they're gonna be. So they feed that guy information to basically get Vic Sage there to kill. And in the meantime, the question, or actually Vic Sage actually meets the main bad guy, who is the preacher.
Reverend Hatch.
Reverend Hatch, yeah. And he's like, hey, I know what's going on with you, and like I'm gonna like take you guys down. And he's like, why would you want to take down a man of the cloth, Mr. Zaz? And he's like, oh, so you know my real name, my birth name. That means you've been like researching me and shit. And he's like, we know many things at the church or whatever. And like, he seems like he comes off like he's threatening, but he's also a nice guy or whatever. But we haven't really seen him do too much stuff.
Well, that makes sense a little bit too, because most orphanages are run by religious organizations. So
sure, but then we get a little like a flashback from the preacher while he's giving like a sermon, and he's like talking about like
back in now.
Yeah, well, he has like the old ways and blah blah blah, like talking about like death and destruction in the Bible and stuff, and then he's talking about like Vietnam all of a sudden, and you're like, wait, what? And then and then it cuts to him in Vietnam, and he's like having a flashback where he like takes his cross off his neck and throws it in the ground, and you're like, wait, I thought he was a reverend or whatever. That's weird. But maybe he had like a crisis of faith in Nam, and then pulled himself together, and now he's the reverend. But now he's trying to bring this city up by using the mayor, and it's not that bad. But as we find out,
we'll see.
That is not the case. And so some things might not be as they seem with this reverend. But basically, now the bad guys have paid that Asian woman. What's her name?
Lady Shiva.
Shiva, yeah, that's right. And she is now part of the fighting squad. We were like, what's wrong with her? And this reminded me a lot of, I have referenced this before, but when in The Simpsons, there's an episode where the mafias are going to fight the Yakuza, and you get like Fat Tony, like, I'm going to fight you, and then like there's this one Japanese guy that's just sitting there not doing anything while everybody else is fighting.
Oh, that's right.
And he's like, Marge, I don't want to leave. I want to watch. That guy hasn't done anything. And I know the second I turn around, he's going to do something. And then like, she's like, no, Homer, come on. And then they close the door. And then you hear like, wah! And then he's like, aw.
That's right.
So yeah, this reminded me of that. Where like, she is there, and obviously we don't know what she is, but she's badass apparently. So this is where you get to see him in his not trench coat. And I think he looks like cooler in his non-trench coat personally. He just looks like, I'm here to kick some ass. Like, but yeah. So he takes off his trench coat. It's snowing, so it's freezing, right? It's cold. And he's on the docks. He's supposed to meet, actually Victor Sage is supposed to come to the docks so they can kill Victor Sage. But who shows up? The question. Oh, we don't know.
And
how did you know?
What? How did you? Yeah.
They're like, you must know Vic. You must know Sage over here or whatever. He's like, yeah, we're pretty close. And so then this lady Shiva's like, hey, I'm here to beat the fuck out of you. Do you have a preferred style of combat? And he's like, yeah, Jack and Johnson. Pick which one you want to say hi to first, dame. And then like she's like, basically he tries to punch her, and he instantly gets the fuck beat out of him by her. It's almost like Wolverine. Like when she reminded me a lot of that Chris Claremont, Frank Miller Wolverine series where he goes to Japan and he's fighting he's the gaijin. And he's fighting all these ninjas and shit. And he's getting his ass kicked until the end, when he like unleashes his beast or whatever inside. And so like Yeah, this just reminded me of that because he gets so owned by her. Like, it literally shows her break his arm on his first punch, and then she flips him over her head. Then she elbows him in the face. Then she kicks him in the face. Then she, like, punches his face and cuts his throat. And then, like, all this crazy shit's happening. And then she basically knocks him out on the ground, and they're like, oh, perfect. And she's like, should I kill him? And they're like, no, let us beat the fuck out of him. And then you get this brutal beating scene where they literally beat him to death with a pipe. All these like gangsters that were there in the first fight scene in that, like when he stole the tape. And so they're getting their revenge for getting beat up in this situation.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not quite as clear, but I mean, it looks like
it's not super. It is a DC book, but I mean, it's pretty graphic.
Well, I was gonna say the thing is that like, and it looks like several panels in the back of his head. It looks like he's like bleeding and had part of his head bashed in.
Yeah, he's getting brain
bad.
For sure. He's definitely getting major brain hemorrhaging going on in this. They're hitting him with a lead pipe to the back of the head at least 3 times, and to the front of the head at least 3 times. So, and this is multiple people also kicking him and everything too.
I do like that Lady Shiva they kind of give her like a little like out with it. She's like, she doesn't like that. She likes a fair fight because she's like, oh, that's barbaric, and like she turns away from the. Yeah,
she's like, he's down or whatever. Like, if you want me to finish him off, then I'll finish him off. But that doesn't matter. And like what you're doing is like it's not honorable or whatever. So she's got her Bushido code or whatever. I don't know, like her. they did that a lot in this kind of era. Like, also Denny O'Neil was the one who like took away Wonder Woman's powers and then gave her like martial arts or whatever. So he's like kind of big on martial arts stuff. At least like that, like white guy writing martial arts stuff. For like David Carradine.
I was like, those are all the people that grew up exactly with David Carradine. And
so he's definitely, I mean, this might somewhat be controversial. Not this one so much, but some of his other stuff for sure is controversial. Like that Wonder Woman run was very controversial. And then like, but some of the stuff he writes in the martial arts realm might be considered like what would be like white guy learns martial arts better than the Asian people or whatever. And then can take them on, kind of thing. But because obviously... but in this one at least, she beats the fuck out of him. So so she beats him up, they beat him up. Then the guy with that air gun comes up and he's like, oh, you want me to, his name's Brother Gun, by the way. I appreciate that. But like, Brother Gun, he's like,
that's right, I got a gun.
Yeah, and he doesn't talk. They specifically say Brother Gun doesn't talk because his jaw was broken a long time ago and just never healed right or whatever. Like, they never took him to the hospital, so he can't talk. And so he just pulls his gun out and they shoot him in the head, and then they say even, hey, look, the slug came out of the back of his head. Usually the gun isn't that powerful. And so then they throw him in the water, and he falls down, and his mask floats off, and then that's the end of the first issue. Here.
Charles Victor Zsasz is dead.
Right
at the bottom of the. It's what seems. It looks like he's dead at the bottom of the bottom of the bay, the docks, whatever.
Floating at the bottom of the bay, whatever it is. But yeah, so that was the first issue, and I know we took a long time kind of explaining that, but this story isn't like, or this series isn't the most like crazy after this, but that first issue is such a good setup, and basically we see from the beginning of the second issue starts, he is like floating towards God or heaven or something, and then all of a sudden he's like, and then I start floating backwards. Like, I see an angel's face, and he's like, who is that? And then it's like, and then I start falling away from the light, and then I wake up, and it's pain, and you see, like, his face is in very, like, it almost looked like a Disney cartoon kind of, like, pose on his face or whatever, like the way he's grimacing or whatever, but he's all sweaty, and he's in pain, and basically every bone in his body is broken. He's at Tot's house, and Tot's taking care of him. And then Lady Shiva also shows up and is like, hey, if you need to get trained, like you.
Well, but then that's in his head because he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, what did she say?"
Oh yeah, he actually has like a vision of what happened last night. Like, he can't remember some stuff, but then he has like a vision of them beating the fuck out of him and all that stuff. And does he have a vision of her saying like?
I think it's a vision of her like saving him and like.
That's right.
The hint of like,
that's right.
Like you're bound for more, basically.
Yeah, like if you want some help, find me and I'll give you some training or whatever. I'll help you out. So this is like the issue where you find Like he's just recovering. Also, we get a little flashback of him and Batman working together, and apparently they were on the docks one night, and like Batman and him stopped some crime from happening. I don't know if that's a Batman issue that he appeared in or something. I need to find that issue.
Well, see, I thought I thought of that first, but I also interpreted him as like maybe he couldn't like everything was kind of going back and forth because it was on the dock, so maybe it brought up by DC's like, well, wait, maybe was I fighting with Batman, or was that a dream too?
Yeah, basically he doesn't know. He only knows one of his names. Which one? I think he doesn't know. I think he knows his name is like Victor Zsasz, or no, Charles Victor Zsasz, and not Vic Sage. Yeah. And so he's like, I'm Charles Victor Zsasz, but who's Vic Sage? And then like Todd's like, hey, I'm Todd, and he's like, wait, who are you? And he's gotta like explain everything to him again, and that's why he's having like flashbacks of like Batman and other stuff, and then Batman actually shows up in his room. We think we're not 100% sure. He might be envisioning this.
But
basically,
the lights go out.
Yeah, the lights go out in his room, and then all of a sudden Batman's there, and he's like, who the hell? And he's like, you know me. Let's do the voice. That night in Gotham City, the pier, the radium theft, you wore a mask. And he's like, then I didn't dream it? He's like, you're a fool, an ignorant, incompetent dilettante. Like, he's basically berating him, like saying, like, you're only in this for your ego, and you're not in this for actually saving people or doing good. And he's like, and if you are doing any good, like fighting corruption, it's just to bolster yourself. And so basically, Batman gives him a talking to, and then he's like, man, fuck Batman. But I was probably dreaming.
Kind of, yeah. He's like, there's some truth to it, but actually, and then Batman disappears. He's like, wait a minute. Was that a dream? Was Batman here? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, a helicopter flies down and picks him up. And basically, it was Lady Shiva set up this meeting for him to have with this dude named Richard. And he goes to Richard's house, and Richard's like, oh, look at you. And it turns out Richard is the guy that like helped train Lady Shiva. And
he's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like he lives like 50 miles from the closest town or whatever, I guess. And he's and
keep in mind, he's all broken up too. Like he has crutches, and his legs are broken, and his arms are broken.
Yeah, he's in a wheelchair. And
I'm not talking about Richard. Even
sorry.
The question is all.
The question is
and Richard is also he's obviously paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair. So I thought this was funny. Right away, Victor walks up and he's like, "That's great. That's beautiful. I'm gonna learn how to fight from a." And then like pauses, and then Richard's like, a cripple, and he's like, I'm sorry. He like I shouldn't have said that or whatever. My bad. I'm an asshole. And so basically he's like, you know what? It's pretty cold. We need some firewood. Also, they explain how he survived. He's like, how did I survive? I got shot in the head and I got all this other shit. And they say, not Richard, but Tot tells him how he survived. Basically because the water was so cold that night, his brain was able to like save itself. It's some syndrome called like diver syndrome or something.
And apparently the bullet also like didn't
penetrate. It didn't go through his skull. It went around it. It hit his skull and just traced the skull line like the bone, but it didn't go through the bone.
Exactly.
So it never hit his brain. It just came out the back of his like skin on his head. And they thought it went through his head. And so that's why he was never actually shot in the brain, and his body, while beaten the fuck up, Lady Shiva saved him and brought him to Tot, and then was like, hey, if you need training, let me show you. And then that's why he ends up here with Richard. And then Richard's like, first thing, we need some firewood. Go cut some firewood. And he's like, how am I supposed to do that? I have like broken legs and broken arms and shit. He's like,
I know, but it's gonna get cold.
And this is where you get like the kind of Eastern, like one doesn't merely do or say, but does, or like whatever, wax on, wax off kind of shit where you get this stuff. So basically, he's able to cut some firewood, and he's like, hell yeah, I did it all. I can't believe it. At first, he's like, how much more? And he's all mad, and then he like overcomes it, and then like we get more overcoming, and then we get this really big montage page of punching and running and healing and him becoming a better man, and he's doing yoga and he's meditating and all this stuff. We don't know exactly how much time has passed, but a while. And basically, I think this series is correct timing with the issues. So if 1 month passes between issues, I think it's 1 month for each issue. So because It's like towards issue 6, they're like, he's been gone for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so it's actually like month for month is how long the issues are. So time passes, and we get like his, and it's funny, like when he's all broken and everything, his legs look all scrawny and shit at the beginning of this montage, and they show him running, and then his body's getting more and more muscular. And I thought they did a really good job of showing his like physique and everything in this. And he gets super into yoga and super into meditating. And I thought that was funny because like Tot is like, what is this bullshit? Like, which I don't know if in the 80s people would be so like, or like a philosophy professor would be so anti meditation or whatever. Maybe they would be, I don't know. But maybe it was so new or something, you know. But anyway, so now Richard, it's been a month or whatever. Richard's like, you're ready. You're ready for the ultimate test. And they're like, what ultimate test? And then all of a sudden Lady Shiva was like, for this test. And then you're like, oh, are they going to get it on? And it's like, no, they're going to fight. And so he starts fighting her, and, you know, they're all like, you know, it's
Kick,
all like,
block, punch, block.
He explains how good he's gotten by saying like, time is an illusion. And so like, basically it's kind of like this like Matrix thing where if you like can slow down your breathing and concentrate on what's happening and focus, you can see things coming way before they come. And so now I can kind of predict motions that I couldn't before, and I'm much more of a better fighter, and he fights her. And I mean, I wouldn't say like he wins, but like, you know, she gets the better of him, but like she's like, you're much better than you were before. And so like she still beats him, but like she's like, goodbye, and like, you know,
he's like, well, wait a minute, why did you save me? You never told me. She's like, yeah, whatever, see ya.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I haven't read, I have read most of this series. I haven't read the latest, like the way later issues, so I don't know if they get like into a relationship later on or something. But basically he comes back to town and he sees Tot, and Tot's like, wow, you seem different, but you know, like, let's do it, let's get back to normal or whatever. So he goes to take on the bad guys. He goes straight to like the mayor's house, and he's like, the mayor lives in a giant castle, and we get like him now fighting the same guys as before as the question, and they're like, wait, we thought we killed you. And also they figured out, they say like the Reverend figures out that Zaz was Victor Sage.
Oh yeah, because
question was Victor
they're
Sage.
talking about it on the news. Myra is like, and it's been, you know, so much time since we last saw Vic Sage, our number one reporter,
missing a month ago. They're like, well, obviously Vic Sage was the question because we murdered the question a month ago.
That was kind of funny because it kind of was like that old trope about like the henchmen are like, that's weird that they're both missing, and then Reverend's like, well, obviously they were the same person, dummies.
Yeah. I appreciated that.
I did too. I like those kind of tropes.
Yeah. Well, I like that they have the trope, but then also they were like, they solved it. They were like, they went to the the logical step of saying, no, dummies. He obviously is the question. Like, not
just like, Superman and Clark Kent are missing. That's crazy.
Who would have thought? Every time Superman shows up, Clark runs away. What a coward. You know, like I'm in love with Superman, says Lois. Or, you know, like she's like the most vapid reporter because she doesn't understand that this is, you know, she's right there in the thick of it. She can't figure it out. But this Reverend figures it out. And so he tells his men, yeah, dumb fucks. It's, you know, obviously he's the same guy. And so then we get another flashback where you get to see his fucking evil eyes. This Reverend's evil fucking eyes. Very, very foreshadowing of what he went through in Vietnam. Because basically he says, like, I saw that cross and I pulled it off and I threw it on the ground and I laughed and I pulled up my fucking gun and I started shooting everyone because fuck everybody. I am a Satanist now. He's like, I'm going to serve the Dark Lord. Yeah. Like, but I'm going to serve God by serving the Dark Lord and bringing the apocalypse faster. And so, like, that's why they're turning. He's got the mayor under his thumb because he's turning Hub City into a city of corruption and basically a new Sodom and Gomorrah, like, you know, like to usher in the end of days or some shit. And so
I like what happens here. This is a little callback. One thing when because they kept in the beginning when they were trying to call out the question and they called them, you know, the no face man. They were like, it's just weird because he just appears out of nowhere and whatnot. They were kind of like, he's kind of mystical. And you know, when they're beating the crap out of him, they're like, you're going to make sure he's dead or whatever. And so they beat the crap out of him finally, and then they throw him in the river, and they're like, you think he's dead? And the Reverend's like, yeah, he's got to be dead unless I see him come back, singing Danny Boy or whatever.
Right.
Like,
And then when he comes back in this issue, he sings Danny Boy.
He sings Danny
and
Boy.
The Reverend's like, wait, who's singing that? What? No, it can't be. And then the question's like, it is. Like, this is what happens, motherfucker. And so, basically he takes on the Reverend, and the Reverend's like, what? Like, he's just taken aback that this person's alive. And then that's the end of issue 2. And so we get the beginning of issue 3, and this one is the one with the bus. The, like, super, it's a very, like, stupid story if you think of it. Like, it would be on a cartoon or something. It's like a very, like, Dr. Claw and, like, Inspector Gadget or whatever. I gotta stop a bus full of kids from getting blown up or whatever. But yeah, this is like basically they have paid someone to kill some kids so that they can start, like, I don't know if it's a race war or just a war against that's what it was. It was a race war because there's like
because they're
it's on
kids.
Martin Luther King Day, although they can't say Martin Luther King, so it's a Black Heroes day, and they're gonna kill some white kids that are on a bus going to, like, an inner city area where I guess black kids are to go, for that field trip or whatever for this Black Leaders Day. And so they're going to, like, blow it up, and then they're going to blame it on the inner city kids, I guess, or something, or, whatever, crime downtown. And so that's how they're going to start this, like, race war or something in the city. And so the question is like, no, you're not. And so, and I thought this was funny because this is where, they said, like, they alluded to the mayor has a new wife, or he's got some new dame up in the room with him. And the mayor's like that drunk guy, right? So, like, we don't see him at all. And then, like, as he's talking to the Reverend, the question, Myra comes out and is like, what? Who's this? And she's in, like, a bathrobe. And then, like, he's like, what the fuck? Like, I'm gone a month and you're boning the mayor? Like, basically, he's, like, taken aback. Like, what the fuck? Like, I know, well, actually, he's like, I know her because, like, I know her voice, but I can't really remember her name because he's all, like, he's still, like, discombobulated in his brain.
Yeah, he's still putting things together.
He's definitely like, Myra? Like, what? And then, like, why are you here? And then the Reverend, like, takes a red hot poker and hits him in the back of almost hits him in the back of the head, but he's got his new senses, his heightened abilities.
Yeah, it's almost like a spider sense.
It's like he went to Namek in the old man, or the old,
oh yeah, when, like, awoke his powers.
Yeah, awoke his inner power or whatever. So, but yeah, so then I love this. So he's fighting the Reverend in this room, and he kicks the Reverend back into the fire. The Reverend is on fire and just jumps out the window out of this fucking, I don't know. They seem like they're pretty high up.
3 or 4 stories probably.
Yeah, and he jumps out of it, and then they're like, all right, well, he's done or whatever. So they don't even look in the window after him after he jumps out. They're like, wow, that was crazy. The window or the alarm's probably sounded now though, so you're gonna be in trouble. And she's like, you should hide in my room. And so she brings him in there, and then he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, hold on. And then, like, the cops show up, and they're like the corrupt cops that work for this Reverend, and they're like, hey, we need to check your room. There's someone in the house, Miss Farron, and that's the name, or Furman, and that's the name of the mayor, is Mayor Furman. So she's married to him in a month. The fuck happened? And so then she comes out and, like, her super skimpy, like, negligee or whatever, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't mean to. She's like, you guys get your eyeful that you wanted. Why are you in my room?
Yeah,
looking for tits or whatever? And they're like, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yeah, and they're, like, all embarrassed and shit. And then basically we find out that the Reverend has her daughter, like, held hostage kind of thing. Like, not actually held hostage, but he's like, I'm going to kill your daughter if you don't go out with the mayor or marry him or whatever. So it's like, basically he's trying to placate the mayor, so the mayor will, like, not question anything he's doing.
And the daughter's being held at an orphanage, the same orphanage
that he was
came
at.
from. Yeah.
So basically, the question gets out of the house. Then we see, like, the plot that's happening with the whole bombing and everything. We see this fat Italian guy who's got a bunch of sons who are badasses, and he's like, hey, I want you to go blow up that children's bus, all right? And then, like, and then it turns out one of his sons is like a wimp, and he always yells at him. He's like, hey, you, sissy boy over there. Why don't you grow some hair on your pears, and go blow up a bus full of kids. That's how everybody gets chest hair, like.
Yeah, and it definitely plays a dynamic because like even the kid is like, okay, Papa, like whatever I can do to please you.
And then his dad still beats the fuck out of him, and he's like, you sicken me, you fairy or whatever. Like this book doesn't really. They basically use some like
they use a little bit of
language,
like inappropriate language, definitely for now.
Problematic language. We'll say you wouldn't put it in a book now, I guess, but they basically are like, he's a bad guy. So basically now they're like, okay, we know we're looking for like kids that are gonna get blown up. You gotta go on this. You gotta find this bus that's gonna get blown up, and then
the question, and they show him being a reporter back on this end as far as like detective-y and like, okay, so it's a school day, or it's a school holiday, so all the buses are mainly at the depots. He's like, well, what's going on? And it's because there's one bus that's going, like he said, to the inner city basically, and so okay, well that's got to be it. So
and so they know that's the bus, and he takes off in his his VW
souped up Beetle.
Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't know what he's looking for though. He's like, I'm looking for someone that's gonna bomb these kids. And I love that they're literally just gonna throw like TNT, like little sticks of dynamite, into the bus, like the worst way possible to bomb a bus. And it shows them at the bus depot doing something to the bus. I thought they were planting a device on the bus, but
I did too at first.
They were cutting its brake lines or something. I don't know what they were doing. Either they're going to make it break down so then maybe they could drive by slower and throw these bombs into the bus. But either way, they're going to bomb this bus. And then as they're about to approach the bus, we see the questions like, that's got to be them. It's heading, like basically their van is heading straight for the bus, and his little VW swerves the bus off the road kind of thing and runs head on into their like van or whatever, and he takes him on. He starts beating the fuck out of him with his newfound karate, and then we see the kid that's like, Papa, I will complete the mission for you, even though you beat the fuck out of me, and
but I want your approval.
I want your approval. And so he lights the fuse, throws it in the bus. Then the question runs into the bus, and
don't touch that, kids.
Yeah, and he takes it, and instead of doing, I thought this too, like, and I like that they called this out, but he actually grabs the whole thing of dynamite and throws it from him, maybe like 15 feet from him, and then like covers his head, like ducks and covers. And I'm like, wow, that wasn't that big of a blast. Like it's like maybe like a 4-foot radius, about 15 feet away from him.
Yeah,
it would have killed
the kids
for sure. But like, it wasn't as big as I thought for how many sticks of dynamite. There's like, I don't know, 14 sticks of dynamite there, and but yeah, and then he was like, it's
a very cartoonish bundle of dynamite.
Yes, and I liked that they called it out. He said, it was stupid of me. In the next issue, they say, it was stupid of me to, I should have just pulled the fuse off the dynamite. Like, that's all I needed to do, but I wasn't thinking 100% because there was kids involved and everything. Like, I should be more, like, reasonable and shit. Like I should just pull the fuse off the dynamite, and then I don't have to worry about the dynamite blowing up or whatever. So, and then he leaves his calling card with the two guys, as though the question card appears, and then he like sees the kids playing in the orphanage, and it's he goes to the orphanage to pick up her daughter because he told Myra, "I'll get your daughter, don't worry. The Reverend will not hurt her or anything." So he goes to pick up the daughter, and then she's building a snowman, and she's like, "What? You want to help build a snowman?" And he's like, you know what?
I do want to build a snowman.
And so, he goes and helps her build a snowman, and it's like the end, and like the sun shining in the back. Yeah, it's very happy.
It's a happy ending. It got a little heavy with possibly killing kids. So
no, but I like that. I like that. Like for the book, for what it was doing, it is like it's a happy ending. But then the seriousness of that bus thing wasn't. They took it to a correct seriousness. It wasn't like cheesy.
Yeah,
they made it seem more real or more like important or whatever. Like it wasn't just like, oh my god, I can't believe they're gonna kill a bus of kids or whatever. Like it was like, holy shit, they're gonna kill a bus of kids, like for real. Like, and they're gonna start a race war. Like that's kind of crazy plot point there. So and then we start off the series and we see, or this next issue with we see the Reverend is still alive. He's just all fucked up and he's kind of crazy now. He's like, I thought he was dead and he appeared and then he burned me and I thought, and then he's like talking to Satan. He's like, I thought you wanted me to do this, Father, and bring on the desolation or whatever. And then he's like talking to himself in this room or whatever. They're like, he's fucking crazy. And so Vic Sage, it picks up right where he left off. He's building a snowman with her daughter, with Myra's daughter, and two cops approach and they're like, hey, we'll take it from here.
Yeah, we'll take the kid.
We'll take the kid. Don't worry about it, Pally. And he's like, you fucking corrupt ass cops. And I love this because he just fucking beats the shit out of the cops. He just like straight up takes them on and they're like, you're going to wish you hadn't done that. And he's like, no, you're going to wish you hadn't. And he like kicks the gun out of the guy's hand. One of the guy's hands.
Yeah, I love that one of the cops is like gonna murder one of the nuns there. Yeah. And he's like, you better, quit what you're doing, or this penguin's gonna get it.
Capiche? Yeah, I like their language. They're very Italian, and so, and they even kick the snowman.
I hate snowmen.
Yeah, fuck this snowman. And so then they run off with the kid because they he didn't want the girl to get killed or whatever, or the nun either, and so they get the kid. They take off in their car, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna chase you with my VW." But it's not spruced up now because he got in that car accident in the last issue. So then he's just like, you know what? I know where they're gonna go. So let me get my mind right. I'm gonna go meditate in my underwear in Tot's house, very homoerotically, do some yoga in my tidy whities, which is fantastic. A little cheesecake for the ladies / gay men here. So. So you get. I mean, this book honestly has more cheesecake for the ladies than it does for the guys. As far as there's not a lot of like Lady Shiva isn't in skimpy clothes or anything or whatever, but he is always shirtless or always pant.
And doing some very interesting yoga poses.
Yeah, very he's doing almost spread eagle shit or whatever. So it's like, it's funny how they do it. But yeah, then he's like, I'm gonna meditate, and Todd's like, so you gonna go save that kid, or he's like, I gotta get in the right headspace. He's like, all right, your headspace,
yeah,
fucking weirdo. Whatever you learned over there with Richard, your new boyfriend, like he's all jealous basically that he's learned stuff that Todd didn't teach him. So, but yeah, so we see that Mira has been taken to this the mayor's house, and the question is gonna go over there to beat the fuck out of them, basically.
I did like that. Like they very much like they put that last exclamation point, like the mayor is not doing anything, because like the mayor kind of is like, hey, what's going on out here? Because Myra gets her daughter back, but the Reverend's like, yeah, you get her back for now, but basically, like, tonight she's going to be sacrificed.
Yeah, he's going to, like, sacrifice her to the devil, which is fucking crazy. He's like, just like Isaac and Jacob and Abraham or whatever.
He's like, you'll understand Genesis 22. And she's like, I haven't read the Bible.
Yeah, and then she reads it later on, and it's like, and Abraham will sacrifice Isaac to the Lord, and it was good.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And so, basically, the Reverend is now gone crazy, and he's like, I know what my Lord, the Satan, he needs a sacrifice. That's why he's gone against me. He needs me to step it up a notch or whatever. So he's gonna sacrifice her to Satan, and then which I did not see this book going into this crazy Satanism.
Yeah, I went very in. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. They make him so like I did not know he was. I mean, I've read this before, but I mean, when I first read it, I did not know that the Reverend is going to be like a Satanist Reverend. It reminded me of Dragnet. Like, are they going to put their goat leggings on? I don't know if you've seen the Dragnet with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Okay, well, they reminded me of that a little bit. Like, hail Satan! It's like they're like, yeah, we're all pagans here, pagans. Rah. Like, so it's a funny. It's kind of funny to look back on it, but they're taking it very serious in this book.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that they're taking it so serious. But yeah, so. The mayor goes, out driving drunk because he's always drunk, and he gets in an accident, and so he's out of commission. And so now the Reverend is really just in charge, and / Myra. Myra's also like a little bit in charge. Like she's the face of the mayor's house now to the rest of the public, but the Reverend's making all the calls. And so we see like the cops are on the Reverend's payroll and all this shit. And yeah, so basically the question shows up. He's going to save these people, or he's going to save Myra and her daughter. And, there was like a little side plot where the henchmen are like, man, I don't want to deal with the question. Let's just like steal shit from this house and then we'll run away. And like, and so they actually get beat up first while they're trying to steal stuff from the house. And then the Reverend has like his knife out and they're doing like that quick, like intercut scenes of the question fighting the guys in the basement. And then he's also getting lucky. I like this too. Like the gun misfires when he's fighting the bad guys and it's like pointed at the back of his head and it goes, they don't show it, but obviously he pulls the trigger because it doesn't show click, but it should say click. I think they can't show a gun saying click in the 80s for some reason. Because even in the Killing Joke, they don't have the gun say click or anything.
That's true.
And so, but in this, the guy looks down at the gun, goes misfire. So like he even gets lucky in this, which I thought was funny that they added. But maybe that's part of his mysticism that he's gotten now. So he can control reality that much. He can make the gun misfire. But basically, the preacher, the Reverend, has got crazy fucking eyes. He's crazy now. He's literally like doing a sermon. Like apocalypse is gonna happen when I kill this child, and he's gonna bring forth the 4 horsemen and all this shit. And he's got his knife out, and as he's about to stab her, he's like, and she's like, well, in the Bible, like God stopped, said like don't kill him. He's like, no, what happened was an angel came and stopped Abraham's hand. So if I'm gonna kill her, and that's what God wants or whatever, then He can stop my hand. And so, like, the question shows up right as he's about to bring the knife down. He's like, hey, I'm here. Put the knife down, loser. And so then they start fighting, obviously. And
well, no, because, like, Hatch has, like, a breakdown.
Oh, yeah, Hatch has a breakdown, and he kind of pushes him aside. But then Hatch also gets the knife later and stabs him in the fucking back.
Yeah.
So, like, as he's like, hey, Hatch, you're, like, a loser. And he wants to kill him with the knife, but he, like, doesn't. And then he like throws the knife down, and then no, I guess he got stabbed. When did he get stabbed? It was like I think I got stabbed in this one. Apparently he doesn't get stabbed in this one. I thought he did.
No, I think it is another fight.
Okay, well either way, someone gets stabbed because he drops the knife. He's like, I'm not gonna kill you. You're just so like corrupt. I'm just gonna like expose you, and you're gonna go away. And then Myra picks up the knife. She's like, no, you won't. I'm going to fucking kill you. So she stabs the
right through the middle of the chest.
Right through the heart.
Through the back.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. I appreciated that she just like kills him. And then he saves the kid and Myra, and they're like, yeah, and their fire started because those guys had like a torch and they were trying to get into a safe, the men that he beat up at the beginning. And so the house burns down, and he says like, oh, I like took those other guys. I brought them like halfway down the hall so that when they wake up, because I just punched them a little bit, they should wake up.
Yeah.
And they won't burn alive.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And so I appreciated that. It was kind of funny because he like half saved them. He didn't really save them because he doesn't think they deserve saving.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of fine with her killing the guy. Like he's like, hey, if you chose that, I mean, he was a bad guy, and he was trying to kill you. So, that's kind of his fucking fault. And, I appreciated that. Like, he wasn't... Like, if that happened in a Batman comic, Batman would be like, I gotta take you in.
Yeah, sorry, you killed... Yeah.
And he's like, I don't care. like, good on you. You overcame your fear, and you stabbed him in the back. And then, like, the rest of the issues are just kind of... showing the city.
Yeah, it's basically shows like how the city, because he had been gone all this time, it kind of shows the city has been slowly going down because of what the Reverend had like been starting to impose. Yeah. Like just kind of going down the tubes. Like obviously most of the cops are corrupt. Even like he sees one of the like oldest cops on the force, and even that cop is like, I remember when it was good, but oh well.
He says, I like this, the cop blames it on the system. He's like, if I had come in and the system was like honorable and truthful, I would have been honorable and truthful. But when I came in, it was corrupt and and bought. And so I was corrupt and bought. And then like basically it's kind of like a day in the life of all the people in the town. And we get to see how bad the town has gotten. And then we also see the mayor is still alive, even though he got in a car accident. But he's always drunk still. And we kind of see Myra take the reins a little bit on like, it's the kind of leading that she's going to be mayor or something later on, or like take over for the mayor because he's going to be like incapacitated or something. So it was pretty interesting issue. I liked this issue. Although there was this one definitely had like,
oh yeah, this one had like some mess,
trigger warning shit. Like there's a boss in this because they're showing how like bad the city has gotten. There's a boss who like everybody's trapped in the city because there's riots going on.
Yeah, and there's no there's no bus. The police are striking. The firefighters are striking. There's no cabs. Nothing.
So there's a secretary and this boss, and they have to stay in the office. And the guy's like, "You can sleep in my office. I got a couch, and I'll stay out here." And she's like, "Oh, thanks,
if you're sure."
And then like he wakes up in the middle of the night, and he like starts peeking in on her as she's changing, and he's seeing her like kind of get half naked or whatever while she's getting comfortable to go to bed. And then he comes in, he's like, "Oh, my wife's been sick for years and I haven't touched a woman in 15 years. She's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like basically he rapes her.
Well, no. He tries to. He forces himself on.
I don't know if I think he does.
No, he doesn't, because he tries to, because he doesn't even get his pants off. That's the thing. Because he tries to, that's I'm not.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
She yells no. Then there's a panel of him on top of her. Then it cuts. Then we see a picture of her crying, her saying, you're a disgusting old man," and her putting her clothes back on.
Well, I don't think, because it does. Well, and
in my mind, he raped her.
Okay, maybe he did. He has his clothes on the whole time still. That's what I'm saying is
you don't have to remove all your clothes, Joe.
I know that, but what I'm saying is that it looks like he tries to force himself.
I'll say this. He's got a big scratch on his face. So obviously she tried to fight him and stuff. And then what happens is he goes and he kills himself. He goes to the top of the roof, which I was like, as a maintenance guy, that guy left the roof unlocked. That's bad on him. But but like the maintenance guy should have left the roof unlocked. But yeah, somehow he gets to the roof. It's unlocked. And then he goes up there and jumps off because he feels so guilty about what he's done.
Yes. Which I felt, I just thought it was like, it's because it's not as explicit.
Yeah,
and
it
that's
can't
why
be.
It's hard.
It's not fucking.
I get that now. I'm not trying to condone what he tried to do either.
I'm not saying
or did do. It just was.
I'm just saying, like, this is how you show it in DC in 1986.
Okay,
you can't show more than that. So just like in Killing Joke, they don't show anything happening. They just show pictures that the Joker took of her with her bra showing or whatever, and you're like supposed to imply that bad things happened from there. He just took pictures of those things or whatever. So. I mean, the way that he's literally bawling and crying that like he's disgusted with himself, but he tries to justify it to himself, and then he's like, "I'm gonna jump off the roof" or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, "Forgive me," and she says, "No, I feel sorry for you a little, but I'm not gonna forgive you."
Yeah.
So like that's why I was like, I don't know. There was like that little.
No, I think that's just misreading. Like that's Denny O'Neil being a man in 1986.
Okay.
Like I think that would read much different nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. So
because I think
that's
what
also
happened
part
is
of it.
he raped her, and she's like, "How fucking dare you?" And I feel sorry for you, like you're disgusting small man, and whatever. But like that's not how this would play out nowadays if this was written.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
Fuck you or whatever. And so, yeah, they basically, and then we also see that Myra is having like flashbacks of the murder that she, when she killed the Reverend, and she's having a hard time with it, but she's also like, he was bad, and I was defending my child, and like she's trying to justify it to herself, but in my mind, I'm like, she was justified. She was fine. So, but it's probably her character kind of having a turn. Where maybe that's where she's going to get the strength to become mayor or do something like that to make the city better. I don't know. That's kind of what it seemed like. But yeah, that's pretty much what this was about. Like just the crime in the city, and it didn't really have the question doing too much other than saving the cop that was bad from like guys that he had shaken down earlier and stuff. And yeah, pretty much that's like this issue was pretty straightforward. And then the last issue. Like I thought it was good, but it was also like it kind of picks up where that father and son the Italian one that was like gonna bomb the bus. Where his son, who he like beat up and everything, and was like, "You're a sissy boy." He's like, "Am I sissy boy dad now?" And he's like, it's basically this dude pours acid on his face.
Yeah, this one didn't have as much of the question either. This
was like kind of a character study on people that we were already introduced to. But it's like basically this kid who's all fucked up from his dad pours acid on his face to show his dad that he's got a tough man's face
tough.
now. He can handle acid all over his face. And so I like this one because when his dad, like, basically his dad's like, "We got to kill this question fella." He sets a trap up for him. And then the son, after pouring acid on his face, covers his face with bandages. And then his son goes to this house to kill the question as well because he hears his dad talking about, "We're going to go to this house and kill the question." Mm-hmm. And so his son shows up at this house wearing a fucking coat and a hat, and his face is wrapped, looking a lot like the question. And then his dad is there with a sniper rifle like, "Oh, there's the question. I'm going to shoot him." And then I was like, wow, they're just like, why would his son do that? But, his son's not in the right mind because he just burned his face off with acid. So, not the most forward-thinking person or correct-thinking person. And so then we see the dad is about to burst through the door as, like, the question and the son are kind of fighting. And then the son pulls out a gun as the dad starts shooting through the door with an Uzi. And then the dad bursts through the door with the Uzi and the son shoots him. And he's like, "Dad, like, why were you shooting at me?" But, like, also, "Dad, I can't believe I shot you." But then I don't know.
Then he starts to take off his bandages and he's like, "How do you love me now, Dad?"
Yeah, "Don't you think I look tough? Huh?" Like,
I can shoot somebody even though it was you.
Yeah. And so, like, I thought it was like a good issue. It was kind of like one of those, they don't have issues like this anymore, which is like a one shot about a character. It was fun though. I enjoyed it. But yeah, it didn't really have to do with the overarching story. But it was fun to see. Maybe this guy comes back, this kid with the melted face. Probably, if I had to guess.
He probably.
But the dad is dead, so maybe he takes over the family business or something. But he shoots his dad, and then he's like, face. "Do you love me, Dad? And he's got his fucking melted off face. He looks like Toxic Avenger or something.
He does.
And so, yeah, it was pretty crazy, like, the way that he looks. But, like, almost a bit two-faced, but it's all over his face.
Yeah.
Like, he's one face. Right?
He's got bandages like Hush, and then he takes it off, and he's like, two faces, one face.
Yeah.
He's Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the first trade of the first 6 issues of the question. I know we went a little long, but this is one of my favorite characters. So
I assume we would for one of your favorites.
I fucking love this character. So did I miss anything? Is there anything you wanted to hit? And if not, what would you give this one, John?
No, not particularly. I think we hit all the main things. Again, the art was fantastic in this one. I really enjoyed it. The story overall, I liked. Again, I liked this cocky character that has to get taken down and then built back up. Like, we kind of realize his cocky ways are not not the right way.
I love that he's still cocky, but it just makes him more cocky. Like, now he's like, I am the one. Like, like he wasn't the one before, but he had the attitude that he was, and then he becomes the one, and now he's got the attitude that fits him. Fits it or whatever.
But he still had to get broken.
He's got the skills that fit the attitude, as opposed to before he didn't have the skills. So I like that his breaking down of the character was just breaking him down to make him fit the ego more or whatever, which I thought was fun.
I liked his quips. He had a lot of funny little quips there too. And then I like the almost every time that he puts the gas comes out and he puts it on, it comes in a question mark too.
Yes,
that's fun.
You got to do it. It's fun. I mean, that's the whole point of comics.
Exactly. Right? So, so overall, I liked it. It was a fun character. It especially for not knowing definitely not reading any of it before. And I want to. It was a solid story, and I want to read some more. I would probably give it a 7.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one as one of my favorite characters, but also this is a really strong first issue, especially the first issue of this is very, very good. So I'm gonna give this one an 8. As far as books you could pick up and give to someone and be like, here's a cool character that's different from other stuff. It's not the most groundbreaking thing I've ever read in my life, but I did love it a lot, and I think it's a really good thing you could give someone that was like, hey, I've read every Batman, I've read other stuff of main DC. What are these D-list characters that no one talks about? and you'd be like, check the question. That's fucking cool. And like, you can get it digitally on Comixology. That's the only place you can find it. So check it out. And then like I could see people liking this character a lot without having to know the Steve Ditko stuff or anything. But I love that history personally. So I was thinking about doing a Matt's Minis concurrent with Swamp Thing and doing from the first Ditko stuff, which is only like I think 5 issues or 4 issues long, and then doing this whole 36 issue run just for funsies as part of like a Matt's Minis, because those are going well. So I enjoy the Swamp Thing ones, but it'd be nice to mix it up a little bit and do both of them at the same time, not stop one. That might be fun to just do the question by himself. So, or with Swamp Thing.
Well, you guys let us know if you like this. If you like this episode and that's something you want Matt to start on, you kind of want to get into.
Yeah, if we get enough demand, I might do it.
Yeah, so let us know. Let us know in the comments
because they're very fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, on that note, we both give it an 8.
No, 7 for me.
Sorry. You give it a 7. I give it an 8.
It's your favorite character. You're just gonna raise my.
I'm gonna bypass your 7 and give it an 8. So yeah, and then next week I think we're gonna read the Brat Pack. Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
So the Brat Pack, for those who don't know, if you like The Boys or if you like that kind of stuff, this was like the original of that. This is from Rick Veitch, who is a Swamp Thing writer and a couple other. He's an artist too, but he is a very basically he wrote like a deconstructing superhero thing around the time Alan Moore was doing like Watchmen and stuff, maybe a little bit earlier. And basically, it's kind of like the teen, like the sidekicks are like more. It's like their story.
So this is not a John Hughes comic. Got it.
No, okay. But the Brat Pack, they call it the Brat Pack because all the kids, right?
Yeah.
It's all the kids of these heroes. And they're going through super fucked up stuff or whatever, things that teenagers go
I was like,
through,
so it's teenage, like what teenagers are going through and being... Okay.
And deconstructing superhero narratives
nice.
or whatever. So
okay,
we're going to read that. It's only like 4 issues long, and it's pretty fun. It's... I read it a long time ago, and it's something that you can find in back issues and stuff. I don't think it's in print anymore, like an actual trade or anything, but so you can get it on Comixology. So I recommend this one, but I haven't read it in a long time, so I want to see.
Let us spoil it for you first, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't want to, go out and start looking for the issues.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see how we like it now that The Boys and those things have come out. Those might be the more mature version of this, like the more well thought out, kind of thing. So maybe if we've read The Boys or watched The Boys or other things like that, like Watchmen and things, it might not have aged as well as those. So we'll find out. We'll see. But we thought that might be a fun one just to kind of change some stuff up. And yeah, I hope you guys liked the interview we did this last week. We had with Otakuology. We checked that out. It was the bonus episode on Wednesday, and we're gonna try to do maybe a couple more interviews. I got a guy who wrote his own indie comic that we were talking to.
I saw some reached out recently.
He was saying like, oh, if you guys want to do an interview, I read it. It was really good. So might do an interview with him or something. So we'll figure it out. Let us know if you guys want like comic book interviews and stuff. We'll try to get some of that going. But if you guys want, or you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, at gmail.com.
And don't forget about our Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube channel for exclusive content, like my recent unboxing of The Child, life size. We got some more of those coming down the pipeline, and we're going to start doing some, definitely some more reactions too, because we got some good feedback from our Justice League one.
Yeah. It should be fun. Also, I'm thinking about doing Jupiter's Legacy review just to throw
with the
out
show
there
coming
with
out?
the show coming out this week. So I might do that just for funsies. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. So look for that this week, and then also we should do Sweet Tooth before that show comes out as well.
Oh yeah, that was one of the reactions because that was. I haven't watched the trailer yet, and you were like, "Oh, that's from a comic." I was like, "Oh, I never even heard of that one." So. Yeah. I will check that out, and we'll probably have that up in probably a day or two.
I don't know if we should read the comic first and then do the review, or like of the trailer, or the reaction of the trailer, or if we should react to the trailer and then do the review. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it
out. Either way, we'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good week.
On the next one.
Bye.